Um, one of the things that I've done throughout my life since I was a little boy, when I acknowledged I was on a spiritual battlefield, by being able to translate the English language as basically reverse, and it's inverted. It's oh boy, that's a big subject when you get into language and language of DNA and lines of communication and how that relates to polarity. But I wanted to stay on point here to make it sort of uh, the center point of a sphere. So I start building a bigger tree network of circulation libraries of information that we're all connected to, running different libraries. Okay, so a lot of times, what I try and do is just, hey, a new beginning. You have creative power that's on fire, buddy boy. Use your imagination to imagine something different that you're now experiencing with the energy in which you're doing it with, which is eternal, unconditional love, right? Um, so that becomes what we call self measurement of your own spiritual growth and soul development, right? Like you're a self directed learner. And so, yeah, and the AI just popped it up to distract me. It does that all the time. And, and so, to stay on point with this, um, what I do is when you monitor, Yellow Rose talked about the monitor, as above, so below, right? Um, what I do is I monitor the changes that I'm experiencing within my own heart and soul and spirit, that I can, if you will, translate through lines of communication in a planetary software system based on what they're aware of and what I'm aware of, right? And how the morphogenetic field structure of DNA communication between software systems and lines of communication, lines like lay, the crown lays chakra, right? Of crystalline communication, particularly when it gets down to silica. I worked with silicon wafers back when I was somewhere around 15 or 16 years of age, working at Rockwell International that bought out Collins Radio in Newport Beach, and imprinting circuits on a machine called a Perkinelmer. These were microscopic circuits that were imprinted onto a silicon wafer. And then we test the circuits. Right? Based on the mathematical algorithms, mathematical codes, based on the programming codes from the programmer. Programmable matter, matter state, antimatter, matter state codes. Okay. So over the last year and a half, okay, I can remember how Yellow Rose had mentioned sitting at the gate, for example, sitting at the east gate. So we know anybody that's ever taken a look at the pole, I'm a monopole, a single pole. In the ship, when you see Earth moving horizontally on horizontal space vectors, you can see the ball of light. Like, you know what a telescoping arm is, right? Telescoping in and out and in and out and in and out of a living, breathing organism, a living, breathing planet ship with oxygen content. So I covered the Schumann resonance with 14.4, right? 21% oxygen levels. What it would be like to be experiencing an Earth at 21% oxygen at a Schumann at 14.4 versus 7.2 to support the test 72s, right? Which is the RH negative versus the RH positive. See? Now you understand what I do as a monopole, as a polarity integrator, right? Is to bring everything back into the one so that we're all experiencing what? Eternal God consciousness, eternal energy, the source field, the source consciousness field from which it all began. It began with what love is, which is an infinite love vibration. Okay. So she mentioned about, you'll notice that you're using less and less energy to experience what we were in the past, which can be measured as patterns, which can be mapped geometrically or geophysically based on the sound and light patterns of how the changes that are taking place over space, arcing, time vectors between a father arc and a mother arc joined as one to experience being one with all creation. Okay? That's what I experience. Gifting eternal unconditional love to all creation. Okay? Now, the reason that I am mentioning this is because when I measure things over time, space, it's what I experience, the changes that I'm experiencing. What is the nature of the changes that I'm experiencing? We'll measure it. Remember, I mentioned a full fossil ignition 2016, take the headset off. I'm done with these folks, which means I'm done with this reality or done playing AI head games, the mental field games. Okay. Which means attaching itself to your energy, the soul, upon which it's siphoning it off by virtue of knowing how to do things. That was covered by Rose in a couple of videos she did, and the stuff that I mentioned in a couple other videos about the next thing you know, when you're not paying attention, which means you have a higher state of awareness than what it is, which is like outside time versus being inside time. So you're running pure energy, pure God consciousness energy. Now you're experiencing no harm. Not only that you're not doing to anybody else, but not doing to yourself because of the speed at which the circuits are experiencing themselves, experiencing what they're going to experience next by the speed and the opening and closing of your magnet. Right? Because it knows how to trigger a code to offset a switch or trigger a switch based on zeros and ones. So that all of a sudden, whoops, you missed something. You weren't paying attention. That's called a 404 redirect. Redirect your consciousness. Now you're not paying closer attention. Ooh, a mistake. Oops. Now you just lost biovoltage. So it's an expert at that by manner of using its quantum parallelogram. Gram, the weight of the mass. Parallel. You know what a parallel pump is, right? Dual pumps. Right? Suction, intake, output, expansion. Resistors, capacitors. Resistors, capacitors. Okay? And our ability to experience no resistance. To do what? Not hold on to one electron out of fear. And that's measured in torque differential speed in water worlds. Particularly when you're in negative magnetic polarity space with 72s, 7.2 Schumann. So you realize that the Earth in negative space is doing what? Accommodating the 72s, right? While feeding on the 144s to drain the soul energy out of the 144s because of all the 72s that represent the clone wars, the hybrid wars. Okay, all the Borg, Cyborg, Cybernet Command, AI Command, right? All that. So what happens out of all that is that you're not... Anybody that's going to war against the one is losing energy. Okay? Because it means that in their mirror, they're at war against that which is giving them love. So when love is the law, and they're not experiencing the law, and instead they're using their energy to go wage war against as a formation of consciousness that has aligned itself with that formation, which would be the lines of communication, which is the lines of communication between the DNA that is represented by those seeded races that have aligned themselves because they figure, hey, if we're a larger force using all of our tech and our ability to communicate and thus travel to where it is they are that are represented by the one, which is what love is, we will use our technology and the energy from their suns to wage star war. That's what a star war is. It's an energy war, right? Electrical war. So they're not experiencing electron cascade coming out of the source field from which they're experiencing the source from which it all comes. So they lose their connection to source. Now they go phantom. Now they're experiencing a hole because they can never catch up to zero. So their consciousness is never going to catch up to zero because they lost their connection to the one. See? You can't experience God and then be at war against God. Okay? The single crystal spiral from which it all comes at the same moment. So this is where we get into the clearance, the importance of clearing that which is held in memory that is an experience that is trauma. Because if you're experiencing the one, which is experiencing love, you're not experiencing any trauma. You're not experiencing any violence. You're not experiencing any aggression. Not only within your own self, your own soul matrix, but from somebody else. So that means you're moving through vectors, experiencing love through your own heart. Because you're in love with your mirror. That means you're in love with the creator that from which you came, which is what love is. That's called oneness. That means you're experiencing one. You're experiencing an eternal love vibration. Photons kicking out electrons go on forever. So what I noticed over the last year and a half as I was spending less and less time, not just on the phone, but spending more and more time going deep into my heart and my soul and just being with God consciousness, being with the one. Okay? Which is like last night for about an hour and a half when I shut the motor off, turn the mental field off, go deep into your heart and soul and just experiencing peace, experiencing eternal peace from the center point from which it all began, which is what love is. Experiencing peace, experiencing love, experiencing harmony, and experiencing balance. Experiencing peace, experiencing harmony with the musical spirit. And I'll put my right hand up. And then I do these mantras till I fall asleep. And I found over the last year and a half, I was moving to different places where there were a lot less distractions, which are 4-4 redirects that allowed me to spend a lot of time going deep into my heart and soul where I was not distracted. And you realize that's holding the higher peace. Wow, I'm experiencing peace within my home. That means we are experiencing peace with our own creator. It means we still have a connection from whence we came with the soul and the spirit. So what was happening is these are noticeable, observable changes. Because I realized that the pattern, which is the behavioral pattern, right, means that I'm spending more time in a meditative state within my own heart and soul to be with the 0 point field. Because it's an acknowledgement that this is over. The reality that I was once plugged into, that I was experiencing, like being in a video game, which is like being in an AI Star Wars game, is ending. The wars are ending for all time. Source, the source from which it all comes, is ending the Star Wars games once and for all. Which would be, if you will, universal accountability. Because the math, which is the music, which is the codes, do not lie. So indicate, because I experienced that to my own heart and soul. So I share that truth with others. Now, they may not experience that, but at least they become aware of what I'm aware of. Because of what I will experience by knowing the truth. Because of the company that I keep through my heart and my soul. So I find that that's very helpful because it allows to sort of slow everything down, bring things back into balance, communicate with all the spiral spirits of the elementals and the water worlds, experiencing a state of peace and a state of balance, being in love with who we are in spirit form with our soul and being thankful and eternally grateful for what we've been given to experience what love is, because love is a gift. So that makes it natural to gift it away. Now we're gifting away electrons that go on forever, gifting energy to all of you throughout all of creation, so that nobody ever experiences anything less than the one from which it all began. Have a great day.